You ever pull into your own driveway at 3 in the morning, tears still fresh on your face from sitting by your mom's hospital bed, and catch a Chanel-clad Karen in the act of literally sawing your gate in half with a pair of bolt cutters? That was me, not 3 months back, just hoping for a shower and some sleep, only to find my world about to tip sideways. She popped out of her shiny new white Escalade, with 2 rental cops trailing behind like they're about to serve a felony warrant, gave me the smirk of a century, and goes, "Marcus Hendris, you owe the HOA $3,200 in back fees. Pay now, or we slap a lien on this house by Monday." You know that feeling when you're too tired to be angry, just numb? That was me. I just looked at her and said, "Ma'am, I'm not in your HOA." She laughed, actually laughed, and said, "Sweetie, every house on this street is ours now. Easy way or the hard way." I smiled, walked into my house, and came back out with one single sheet of paper, just one. She saw it, and her face turned from hot pink to ghost white so fast you'd think I'd waved a loaded gun instead of a deed. But I'm getting ahead of myself. You want to know how I got into this mess? Grab a chair, pour a cup of coffee, and buckle up. This is a ride. Name's Marcus, 58 years young, 20 years Army logistics, back when that meant something. Been living on this little patch of land for 15 years now, ever since my Uncle Ray passed and left it to me. 2.5 acres at the dead end of Maple Ridge Drive. He built the house in '87 with his own hands. Workshop out back, plus a guest cabin where I let vet buddies crash if they're in a rough spot. Ray was the salt of the earth, cash on the barrelhead, never trusted a suit or a politician farther than he could spit. The kind of man who'd build a kingdom out of spare lumber and stubbornness, and he pretty much did. To get to my place, you have to cross a little creek and a bridge, surrounded by a wall of oak trees, separated from the neighborhood, like Ray planned it that way. But here's Delilah Whitmore, HOA president and human Botox billboard, deciding I owe her association some back dues on the house my uncle built before her little fiefdom even existed. She's been running that HOA for 8 years, sells overpriced McMansions when she's not bullying people, and drives that Escalade like it's a throne on wheels. "Your uncle agreed to voluntary inclusion in 1994, she told me, flipping through her clipboard like the queen of Maple Ridge. "All properly filed with the county." Right. My uncle would have burned the place down before signing up for a neighborhood association. She leaned in with that condescending smile people save for dogs that just peed on the carpet and said, "We maintain property values here. We ensure the right kind of people live in our neighborhood." Yeah, that happened. The right kind of people. I've been hearing that phrase my whole life, always from folks who'd call the cops if your grass got too tall. I just asked, "What exactly is wrong with my property?" She points to my workshop. Unpermitted commercial structures, fire hazards, unsightly storage. Handed me 4 fresh printed violation notices and says, "That'll be $4,200, penalties included." 5 minutes ago, it was $3,200. Math's different in HOA land, I guess. So here's the thing. HOA covenants have to be recorded with your deed to be enforceable. No exceptions. If it's not on your deed, they can kick rocks. But Delilah's not one for details. "Mr. Hicks, I'm trying to be reasonable. Pay your obligations. Bring this place up to community standards, and we can all coexist. Lady, I just spent 22 hours watching cancer eat my mother alive, and you want to nickel and dime me over a shed?" I told her I'd need to research her claims. She left a business card, perfume so thick it gave me a headache, and told me payments were due Friday or else. As her Escalade peeled away in a cloud of dust, something in me snapped. I may be tired, but I'm still a veteran. You picked the wrong guy to mess with, lady. First thing Monday, I drove straight to the county clerk's office. Smelled like dust, old coffee, and broken dreams. "I need the deed for 247 Maple Ridge." I told the clerk, who looked like she'd seen every neighborhood dispute in the county. She found my file, handed it over, clean as a whistle. No HOA, nothing. I went ahead and pulled the Maple Ridge HOA formation docs while I was at it. Turns out, their little kingdom didn't even exist until 1991. Uncle Ray built our house in '87. You can't slap rules on people who were here before you built the fence. So I get home, and guess what? Delilah's Escalade is parked in my driveway again. This time she's brought muscle, A teenage security guard drowning in polyester with a badge that probably came from Party City. Mr. Pricks, we're here for the mandatory compliance inspection. She's snapping pictures left and right. Fire hazards, unpermitted structures, $500 inspection fee. I told her, "Ma'am, you have zero authority to inspect my property." She ignored me, wandering around like she's house shopping. I called the county planning office while they poked around. Took them 3 minutes to confirm every building was permitted when Ray built it. But watching her through the kitchen window, I noticed she kept pointing at her precious decorative fence, her pride and joy. That's when I remembered Uncle Ray's old survey documents, still in my fireproof safe. I pulled them out, laid the original survey next to a satellite photo, and started tracing boundaries. My property line actually runs 20 feet further east than anyone realizes, including 15 feet under Delilah's $3,000 fence. The one she was now photographing as evidence of my blighted property. Turns out, it was sitting on my land, maintained at my expense. I'd learned in the Army, always have better paperwork than the other guy. So I called a surveyor, got it certified, and sent Delilah a polite little letter. "Remove your fence from my property within 30 days, or I'll dispose of it." She lost it, sent code enforcement after me, filed anonymous complaints about commercial activity, noise, safety hazards. Rodriguez, the officer who came out, was an older guy, probably ex-military himself. Walked through my spotless workshop, admired my 1952 Craftsman drill press, told me off the record, "We're getting a lot of these calls lately. Always anonymous, always targeting veterans or the elderly." I could smell Delilah's perfume on the paperwork, so I started digging into her background. Turns out, her real estate license had been suspended 2 years ago, undisclosed conflicts of interest. Her husband's mortgage company, under investigation for fraudulent appraisals. Oh, and he owes $85,000 in unpaid business taxes. Suddenly, their desperate need for HOA money made sense. She called an emergency neighborhood meeting, PowerPoint and all, circling my property in red as neighborhood blight. Tried to paint me as the villain, but misses. Patterson, 87 years old and sharp as a tack, stood up and said, "Marcus fixed my steps for free." Other neighbors chimed in. Delilah's mask cracked. That's when I stood and dropped the bomb, showed the survey. Her fancy fence is on my land, no permission, no easement. The room went silent. Her husband turned pale. I hinted that filing false insurance claims was a federal offense. Watching her scurry out of the room, laptop clutched tight, was worth every sleepless night. But she wasn't done. Next morning, I got served with a restraining order. She claimed I threatened her at the meeting. Deputy Collins looked as embarrassed as I felt serving it. Now I couldn't contact HOA board members. I called Uncle Ray's old lawyer, Frank Morrison, who found, buried in the original purchase documents, a property exclusion agreement. Ray had negotiated it. His land could never be part of any HOA. Even better, every enforcement attempt against me triggered a $10,000 penalty. Frank counted 23 separate attempts, $230,000 plus attorney fees. If they kept pushing, the whole HOA could be ruled invalid. That same week, my mailbox was smashed to pieces, tools stolen from my workshop. Caught the whole thing on my new security cameras. White Escalade, license plate clear as day. Rodriguez called it felony theft. Mrs. Patterson came over with a casserole and told me Delilah was sniffing around, trying to convince neighbors I was a dangerous, unstable vet. But she wasn't fooling anyone who mattered. Turns out, the Whitmores were 3 months behind on their mortgage, and repo guys had already come looking for the Escalade. Insurance adjuster Greg Hamilton came by and shared something chilling, 12 similar cases in 3 counties, all following the same pattern: HOA harassment, property damage, insurance fraud. The FBI was investigating Delilah's operation as part of a racketeering ring. And now, they had everything they needed to take her down, thanks to all the evidence I'd collected. Final straw. She and her husband tried to buy me off, $30,000 in cash, just to keep quiet. I recorded the whole conversation, threats and all. Then, on the night of the next HOA meeting, half the county showed up. The FBI, Rodriguez, Greg, my neighbors, everybody was there. Delilah strutted out her fake documents and tried to put my property into compliance. I stood up, projected the original exclusion agreement for everyone to see, played the recording of David Whitmore offering hush money, and watched as Agent Walsh flashed her badge and put them both in cuffs. Wire fraud, extortion, racketeering. You could feel the weight lift off the whole room. 6 months later, life's better than ever. My workshop's a hub for the Veterans Therapeutic Woodworking Program. Mrs. Patterson brings cookies and gossip, Jake's building crooked birdhouses, and Tom's teaching his grandson how to sand the right way. Delilah's doing 4 years in federal prison, her house got auctioned off, and Mrs. Patterson bought it just to spite her. The property exclusion held up in court, and I got every penny of the penalty, plus attorney fees, enough to set up a scholarship fund in my mom's name for military families and expand the workshop for vets with PTSD. Even better, the Whitmore investigation led to new state laws, financial transparency, background checks for HOA boards, a hotline for veterans, and a string of criminal convictions across 4 states. The best revenge isn't just living well, it's helping your neighbors do the same. Uncle Ray was right about that. And now, every time I fire up the old drill press, I hear his voice. Don't let the bastards win, Marcus. So what's your HOA horror story? Drop it in the comments. Maybe I'll feature it in a future episode. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button, because next week we're talking about the landlord who tried to evict a military family during deployment and got hit with a legal comeback so hard he'll be renting from his own tenants by the end. Stick around, y'all. Justice is just getting started.